Good afternoon. This is Brad Spates with Guide Technologies. First of all, thank you for signing up and attending our Infor XA Enterprise Financials webinar. This is our second webinar in a series of four that we're conducting. Today, our topic is Enterprise Financials. We'll have Rick Altino, a manufacturing specialist, and Al Stein, one of the financial specialists, kind of walking through the latest and greatest with Enterprise Financials and how the Infor XA. Just a couple housekeeping notes. Everybody is on mute during the presentation. If you have questions, please utilize the chat feature. And also after the, probably a day or so after the presentation today, we will send a link out to everybody registered and attended with a copy of the presentation, audio and video. With that, I will turn it over to Rick Altino.
Good afternoon, everybody. As Brad just said, I'm Rick Altino. I have looked at the attendee list. I know that most of you actually know who I am, so that's good news. Today we are going to be doing a discussion about enterprise financials. And as we're doing this, we've done enterprise financials overviews before. Infor has done some of these overviews before. So today is not going to be so much about what can enterprise financials do. It's going to be talking about planning for enterprise financials in your facility, because hopefully you have noticed that we are now getting release updates back into XA on a regular basis. Ross Freeman has been doing, along with Dave Foster, a modernization webinar. There is another one coming up, and I have an advertisement for that on the last slide of this presentation. So if you haven't seen that yet, I highly encourage it. But it's going to be talking about Release 10. And with Release 10 and Release 11, which is scheduled a year after Release 10, that's not a firm date, but we're expecting those out this summer and next summer. We now have a timeline that we have to look at enterprise financials. This has been out for a couple of years, but we have to make sure that we get it in our budget, get it in our plan, because starting in Release 11, the other financial systems, the green screen-based systems, are going to be discontinued. So we have to have a plan to be moving these things forward. So that's what today's webinar is about. We are going to do a brief discussion of enterprise financials. You're going to get a couple of customers talking about it. We have Al Stein is with me, and he has a couple recordings from a couple customers to show you a little bit about enterprise financials. So with that, I'm going to move forward. First thing I want to touch on is the roadmap. Now, this is a roadmap from Ross. This is the plan for XA over the next couple of years. We're currently at Release 9.2.2. That was as of October 2020. Now, Release 9.2.2 is basically a prerequisite for enterprise financials. There are a huge number of improvements, enhancements, capabilities that have been added to the system. And 9.2.2 is also the base file structure for Release 10. Release 10 is going to be mostly a client PTF. It is going to upgrade the ability of NetLink. And so I believe there's very minimal database changes, if any, in Release 10. So being at 9.2.2 puts you in a position to upgrade your client to Release 10 very quickly and easily when it becomes available this summer. Release 10 is currently released. We have half a dozen customers and your affiliate channel, so another 7 or 8 affiliates that have Release 10. It is real. It has been released. We are testing it. We're trying to make sure the bugs are worked out of it, so there, as you take it live, you won't have any of those issues. But it is a major enhancement to the user interface. You've been hearing NetLink for a while is going to become the major interface to IDF. As of Release 10, NetLink is more powerful than PowerLink, and that will be the direction moving forward. Why is that the case? Because more and more customers have remote sites, and we are trying to support the cloud. Not trying, we have customers on the cloud. And by using HTML instead of using Java, It makes the system much faster, and it eliminates the needs of having remote desktop servers and things like that. So it's much more powerful, much more appropriate moving forward. A year after that, scheduled for the summer of 2022, is Release 11. This will be the largest release in the history of XA. Very powerful. All the inventory transactions are being rewritten, 100%, including the famous pick, pack, and ship. That is all going to be completely redone. This is in process right now. Very excited about having this and being able to move forward. So the important thing to know about that, though, is that's also going to be the beginning of the elimination of green screen. So as we're looking at this, XA10 already out. I got ahead of myself. It's an HTML5 release. It upgrades Netlink. 922 is a prereq of eFin. So if you're getting ready to do eFin and you're not on 922, that's really one of the first things that you want to take care of. And then that puts you in a position to go to Release 10. So I have 2 or 3 slides here that are from Ross's presentation on Release 10. Again, I will give you the advertisement of when those are going, the last seminar is going to be, so you can look at it yourself. But it is the new user interface. It is cloud-based. It is HTML-based. And so everything, I'm not going to go through these screens because Ross is doing that for you. But this is what's going to put us in a position to be able to eliminate Java. For those of you that have multiple locations, you know how slow it can be if you're outside the building that holds your IBM system. So this is great news, and we're excited to see this happen. A lot of new capabilities in here, including direct exports to Excel and other functions that we've been waiting for a long time. So I want you to be looking at that. I want you to be planning on moving forward with that and preparing for Release 11 next summer. Why am I worried now in March about Release 11 next summer? Enterprise Financials have been averaging 4 to 6 months for go live projects. This is not something you're going to decide to do in March and start in April. You have to work with your affiliate. You need to work with your accounting department. We need to schedule these things. I am highly encouraging you, everybody on this call, to contact your account exec. Whether that's with Guide Technologies, I know we have people that are with other affiliates online. Contact your account exec and get something scheduled. You're not locking anything in, but hey, I want to do this in the second half of this year. Looking to do it at the beginning of 2022. Let's get it on the calendar. That way we can work with you and talk about a budget and start talking about the improvements that you want to make, or whether you're bringing your present system over as is. We need to start developing that plan. You need to get the budget together. We need to prepare our accounting departments for what this process is. So the key here, as I said earlier, accounting management and IFM are going away. This is something XA has not done in the past. They are discontinuing applications. Formal discontinuation of 5250. Now, as I say that, we all know that there's going to be rare exceptions. There's going to be things that aren't ready on day 1 of Release 11. There's going to be some functions that we have to do. In fact, I'll talk about 1 or 2 of them coming up, but I just want to make sure that you know this is real, and we have to get the plans in place. So let's talk a little bit about Enterprise Financials. Why do we need to do accounting system? Well, for those of you that are running accounting management, that came out 40 plus years ago. It was written in the 1970s. It was designed on a System 34 that maxed out at 12 terminals. 12. If you loaded every one of your people on there and you loaded all the DASD you could load on a System 34, it could hold 256 megabytes of data. And that includes the operating system. So the reason when you look at accounting management, why it is so simple, why when I close a month does it delete the journals? Well, that's because they didn't have the disk space to save all those things. So obviously, this has been discontinued for a long time. In fact, IFM came out in the early 1990s. There has not been an upgrade to accounting management since then, except for a couple legal issues. So Infor's allowed you to continue using it, but you're not getting anything new out of it. It will never get more than the AM Plus stuff that's sitting on top of it. Payables and receivables are never going to be a part of the Windows environment. And it's going away at Release 11. It was replaced by International Financial Management. It was also written in the 1990s. Now, in the 1990s, your ERPs were not running in Windows. They were running in RPG, COBOL, DOS, whatever you were running back then. This was pre-Windows. It was also pre-Sarbanes-Oxley. It was also pre-laser printers. So you had things like green bar paper. So IFM was much more powerful and handled a lot of the multi-company, multi-country type of requirements. But it still is not as strong as what we need today. So accounting management was discontinued in the early 1990s. IFM has been discontinued as of Release 9. There's no more improvements being made to IFM. Again, XA is going to continue to allow you to use those things, but there's nothing new happening. The difference was in Release 6, when this was dropped for support, they've allowed you to continue using it. But you're paying for IFM, and then you're paying for Enterprise Financials in your annual license fees. You're not taking advantage of the investment that you're placing. So accounting management was discontinued. It was replaced with IFM. It stopped being upgraded in Release 9. Both of these are being discontinued at Release 11. And you probably see I have a dotted line just after Release 11 for IFM. They're going to discontinue accounting management first and then follow up with IFM. They've been replaced with Enterprise Financials. So with that being said, where did this stuff come from? And in some cases, do I have anything that can help me with this? Well, let's talk about that. The general ledger came from LX. BPIX, for those of you that remember the old name. It was a very strong green screen designed financial system. It outperformed IFM. It is state-of-the-art, except for the fact it was on green screen. Infor took the database, not the green screens, rewrote it, and put it into Enterprise General Ledger. So the reason that's important is the logic of Enterprise Financials has been around for a number of years. It is proven. It has hundreds of users. In XA, we now have dozens, multiple dozens of users. So it is operational. It's working. But the history of this is it's a very sound financial system. So that's where the general ledger came from. The receivables and the payables came from IFM. So we took the IFM database structure, again, rewrote it so it works better in IDF. And Enterprise Financials, there's not a green screen equivalent. It's only an IDF. Linked it into the Enterprise General Ledger. There's where our core came from. Now, some of those functions right there, you will see, if you're familiar with IFM, you're going to be familiar with some of the functions in the key master files and things like that that have to be set up. You have to have entities, things like that that you're used to seeing in IFM. So that's going to continue working. Then there was new development. Some of you are already running F9. That is our report writer, our financial report writer. And then they took the transaction processing for all the cash management and wrote their own application. So this is the basis of where Enterprise Financials came from. It's exciting. For those of you that know, there are millions and millions of lines of code that exist in XA. When they loaded Enterprise Financials, it increased the database, it increased the programming stack by 40%. So 40% of XA is now the financial system. Very excited about the fact that this is something we've been looking for a long time. It is powerful. It's not just the general ledger that tags along with the ERP. This is something that customers are looking at as a standalone. It's justifiable to put in as a financial system. So again, I'm not going through the full demo of that function today. Wanted you to know where it is in relationship to our releases, what's happening coming up. I'm going to let Al talk a little bit about the applications and some customers that are using it. And then I'll come back on and close this thing out. So Al, go ahead and take this over and we will go from there.
Thank you, Rick, and welcome. I appreciate everybody being able to join. And there we go. Got a couple of slides here and then some customer videos that we're going to show you. But what I first wanted to focus you on is that within the XA ERP system, the guts that allow us to pass data and reference data from the other XA systems that exists. And it doesn't really matter which financial system you're using. Customer service checks credit limits from finance. And when the order is created and shipped and invoiced, then it passes that information to the financial engine so that it can eventually get posted to the GL. On the material side, when material moves, same thing. It passes that transaction to the general ledger. Production, when manufacturing orders are complete, your variances to standard are passed, and procurement, when you have POs that are created, whether you invoice off of the PO or the receipt happens and you create the invoice off of the receipt, that information is staged. Now, what's important about this is that one of the things that Rick said is that in release 11, that they were having a rewrite of the engineering piece. That's critical to get off green screen, because the guts of what makes this work through the general ledger interface is pointing back to the item revision. So until you rewrite that piece of the engineering, we're tied to that structure and we're not able to take advantages of all the power. With that being said, the system is configured that we use those files as they exist today, and then we overlay on top of that all of the additional functionality. So the main differences from my perspective between the three financial systems is that with the AM general ledger, you're talking about a single ledger that supports multiple companies. So the structure of that ledger is locked in. Everybody's using that same ledger format. In IFM, you have a similar type of thing, only you're able to manage multi-currency, and you have an additional segment that they call a unit that you could put identifiers for a department or a location, something like that. When you get to enterprise finances, conceptually, this is a different animal, because I can have multiple ledgers. Now, what this really means is that if I have a company in Europe that's recording transactions in euros against an IFRS standard, and they've got a chart of account structure with 5 segments, I can also have a US-based company that maybe is recording to a general ledger with 3 segments in US. And enterprise financials in the same environment allows me to take all of that data and translate what needs to be translated financially, and consolidate that all into a single consolidated operations ledger. Now, that's something that up till this point, customers had to go outside of XA to solve. So there were a lot of third-party applications. I've had a lot of clients that solve that problem using Excel spreadsheets, dozens of Excel spreadsheets to get you to that end game. All of that is done with just a couple of mouse clicks within enterprise financials. Let me get my screen to advance. See if my helper is there. Rick, can you take me to the next screen? There you go. So in the first situation, what Rick asked me to do, quite frankly, was he asked me to demonstrate how easy or how hard it is for a customer to do a transaction in Enterprise Financials. Because we have a whole lot of customers that are not particularly complex. They may have one manufacturing operations, a couple of locations, and they're sitting there running AM, wondering, why do I have to go to Enterprise Financials and it's going to disrupt my workforce and change everything? Well, that's really not the case. You do have different input screens, but we can leave everything else pretty much the same. In this example, I'm going to show you, I have a client, and instead of using customer service, your COM or your CSM for your order entry, they're using auto release. So we do have the ability, when we configure the software, to use whatever system or legacy system you're currently using, and we can get that into Enterprise Financials. So they're using auto release for order entry, and then they're interfacing through the procurement side to create POs and receipts. They can interface the other subsystems of inventory and manufacturing, but they're not. So when we did this implementation, we did what's called a like for like. It's a pretty quick implementation that we take the setup they have today, and in essence, we're just upgrading them to the Enterprise Financials engine and GL. With that, let me introduce WHIS Tech. That's the client. They make components that go into automobiles, and they're primary supplier for one of the top 3 automakers globally. Okay, I've started the recording, and I've got with me Stevie Nagy from WHIS Tech, where she's the accounting supervisor. Good morning, Stevie.
Good morning.
I'd like you to show one of the transactions that you do on a regular basis, just so people that are coming from AM can see how easy or not so easy it is to enter an AP transaction. So would you show us one?
Yep, I'm going to do a non-PO AP transaction. You just click on AP transactions. Then you can do a subset on your entity. Pull up the one that you want. And there's the copy function. So I'm going to go to the previous month, select copy. I'll have to change my dates. My narrative is going to stay the same. So I go down, select copy. And from here, I want to make sure that I change the period so it posts correctly. And then I'm going to, the amounts are different. So I'm going to choose the edit function. My nature unit are going to be pre-populated from the last time. So I can just click update. Do the same because the expense is split. Again, nature unit are the same from the previous. Click update. I'm going to add the reference, which would be the invoice number. And then I can hit copy, confirm. And then it is posted, or not posted, but at the top, ready to be posted. And that's all there is to it.
Very good, thank you.
You're welcome.
Let me ask you, how has migrating to eFin affected what you do in accounting?
I feel like it's made a lot of things simpler. You can get to your data a lot easier. It's very easy to navigate around. It was a little overwhelming at first, I'm gonna be honest, but the function that I use, that copy, that saves a lot of time. So it's a good thing.
And has this affected the month-end closing window?
Yeah, I don't have to go into green screen for things. I can export from here. So that's been very helpful. And it's made the AR tracking, and I don't really necessarily have the right words, but just it's just helped with the AR side a lot.
Well, that's great. Stevie, I really appreciate your time today and walking us through this transaction.
You're welcome.
Have a great afternoon.
Thank you. You too.
All right. It's a simple example. Now let's talk about something a little bit more complex. If you're a larger organization, and that's what takes us to Cincinnati Fan. And the thing about Cincinnati Fan is that they have 3 companies, one in Europe that records in Great British Pounds, 2 in the US, and one of the companies in the US has a very simple chart of account structure, like the AM chart of account structure, only their account codes start with alpha characters. The other company is more like an IFM structure. And so they were using, I want to say like 29 spreadsheets for their consolidations. With eFin, you can support all of the multi-company currency chart of accounts, do multiple consolidations across companies, and so forth. So let's hit the next slide on this, please. So this is a diagram of their situation. They're running these 3 companies in different environments. Because they're in different environments, we didn't take the time to ask Carlos to code a program to automatically get the trial balances, because they had a business process in place where they were sending those trial balances as spreadsheets to corporate to be consolidated. So we just kept that as it was. But in eFin, we set up 3 companies, 2 in US, 1 in Great British Pounds, and we uploaded their trial balances using Excel in their native chart of account structure and native currency. Now, this is really key when you're a finance person and you're talking with the head of operations. We need to make sure that there's total transparency between the numbers that your senior executives send into corporate and the numbers that get reported. That's why it's critical to upload everything natively. That way they can see how the transactions get consolidated. So what we had to do was we had to do a currency translation on company 3, and then we did the consolidations. Once they were consolidated, we set up a non-operating company we called 80. It might have actually been 50 or 60. The number doesn't matter, but we set a non-operating company and we posted all the eliminations there. The reason that's important is that you don't want to commingle your eliminations transactions with your operating company. You want to be able to have those completely transparent and visible for audit purposes. We then took all of those results, consolidated them into a consolidated operations company. Next slide, please. That takes us to Cincinnati Fan, and now we're going to play. All right. Hi, Debbie. I wanted to introduce you. You're Debbie Zeisler, and you're the controller for Cincinnati Fan. And I appreciate you taking a couple minutes to be with us today to show us how you're using enterprise finances to do your financial consolidations. At month end, oh, thank you. talking over. At month end, what do you do to run a consolidation?
Well, the first thing we do is upload each individual company. We have 3 companies. We upload the trial balance for each of those companies into EGL. And then at that point, I'm ready to consolidate those companies in the EGL. And what you would do is you go to this financial processes list section. And here you will see, for instance, one of our companies is Cincinnati Fan. So here is the consolidation process to bring the trial balance and map it into the consolidated financial statement format.
And how do you actually run that?
So I would highlight the one I want. I go up here to the top of the screen and execute the financial process list. By hitting that, I will make a journal and throw it into the journal listing on another section in the EGL. And that will have already been posted at that point. I do not need to post this consolidation entry. It posts automatically.
That's great. So you're able to take balances from multiple general ledgers and consolidate them into a single ledger in enterprise finances in the general.
That is correct.
Great. Now, if you had to update the mapping table from one chart of account to another, where would you do that? And could we see that?
I would go right back to the home screen here, go to, instead of transactions where I am now, I would go to codes. And in the codes area is financial consolidations. And say Cincinnati Fan is chosen. As you can see, the original accounts are shown as well as the consolidation accounts. And so I would go over here to the right, add a new line, populate the box that pops up with similar data as I see here, and then those accounts will be available for use.
Well, that's great. I appreciate that, Debbie. If you could say what was the biggest benefit of going with this, how would you summarize that for your company?
The biggest benefit was feeling that we had accurate reporting. When you use an Excel spreadsheet, any kind of manual spreadsheet, you have errors. We had errors continually. With this methodology, there is no human error. It automatically uploads into your spreadsheet with the F9 function, automatically uploads, updates, it makes your financial statements, and there's no playing with, there's no chance of manual error.
Did this shorten your time to close any?
Oh goodness, yes. I mean, I can do the EGL process, which again creates our financial package in probably a day. That includes cash flow. So I can do that in a day. Before, it would take you at least 3 days, and again, there was no promise that that was totally accurate. Every single month, we find an error. We don't find that now.
That's terrific. Debbie, I really appreciate your time, and thank you for showing this to us. You have a great day.
You're welcome.
Of the consolidation project, which is the point of the project. And when I asked her about her time to close the month, she explained that they were able to complete all of their financial package, including their cash flow statement, in 1 day. And that was a reduction from 3 days, and the 3 days was often not accurate, so they had to iterate through that. And now they have total accuracy from the originating operating company through the consolidations. They don't have any data issues, and their holding company now is extremely happy. We'll make those videos available so you can hear that in their own words. But at this point, it really is, okay, what do you need to do? as Rick mentioned, you got to get to 922. Generally, what we suggest is once you're there, let's do a like-for-like implementation of eFin, and that minimizes the risk because we are keeping the business processes the same. We're just changing the platform from AM or IFM to eFin. Once we get on the platform, then we can separately now do process improvements as a separate exercise. Today, we've been doing the process improvements first and then positioning for the upgrade to 10. It's very possible that we might do a like-for-like implementation to eFin, then go straight to the upgrade to 10 so that we can get off a power link and get into a browser, and at that point do the process improvements. But with that, Rick, let me pass it back to you to finish up.
All right. Well, I'm going to go back to my questions earlier. What do you have to do? When do you have to do it? How are you going to get to this next step? And this is the crucial part. We're asking for your input to us. Please give your account executive a call. Now, I can give you some things that we're going to be thinking about. So, for instance, when Al said move like for like, let's keep it as simple as possible doing the implementation. You don't have to change any of the things that are on your screen. You know, if you want to keep the same companies, the same account numbers, etc., you can. We can bring these things over. You can continue to use them. Now, if we want to maintain those, we can do that too. That's a part of our discussion. That leads us into how difficult is this going to be? Well, there's no one answer to that question because the implementation can be as simple or as complex as you need it to be. You understand the complexity of your company. You understand the complexity of your charts of accounts, your multiple charts of accounts. How many countries are you in? What kind of consolidations do you want? I will tell you, typically, our conversions are lasting 4 to 6 months. Now, that's not 4 to 6 months of continuous effort. That is 4 to 6 months. And if you're doing a conversion, that last month or two is testing. So really, the conversion is only taking 3 or 4 months, and that starts from the planning process all the way through the data conversions, etc. So we allow the 4 to 6 months. We encourage you don't do it at a year end. Somehow or another, accountants find something to do after the end of their fiscal year, and changing software is not necessarily what their first goal is. So we want to do it at a non-meaningful time period that you can concentrate on getting this conversion done. So we want to be able to walk through that. We want to be able to sit down and tell you specifically how long we think your environment's going to do. We have what we call a questionnaire, an upgrade questionnaire, that gives us information about your environment. And that gives us a starting point that we can come back to you and give you the information you need to do all that planning. So it's a combination of the Infor software, your business partner, Guide Technologies, and your input. This is not something you're going to run a conversion on your own on a weekend and come up on the new financial system on Monday. Would love to tell you that's the case, but it's not. We have to be realistic about what it's going to take, and that's where that discussion comes into play. So I'd like to give you the suggestions here. We want you to be current on 922. Now, if you're not on 922 and you want to wait till release 10 and go to release 10, I mean, all these things are flexible. We'll work with you on what's best for your environment. But if you want to get started on this now, we want you to be on 922 to be able to load Enterprise Financials. Now, if you say, I want to bring this up live in NetLink, well, then we're going to wait till June before we go live, because that's when release 10 is scheduled to come out. These are all our planning points. So we want you to get current. We want to upgrade, convert your present system to Enterprise Financials, and then we want to move to NetLink. We want to do it one step at a time to lower the risk rather than doing it all at once. So what can you do now to prepare for this? Well, clean up your database. If you have 17 years of purchase orders in your history files, do we really need those? Are your manufacturing orders properly closed out? The thing about Enterprise Financials, when you integrate these things, when you turn on your application interfaces, it's going to link that journal entry to that inventory transaction. So when you're looking at the journal entry, you can open up the inventory transaction and then open up the manufacturing order that generated that transaction. You'll be able to see the individual labor transactions that went into those things. We can drill into it. They're all linked together. That's something that didn't exist in the other applications. So cleaning up that database will make it easier to get these things installed. When we talk, we're going to talk about how converted you are to IDF. Is your accounting department still only running green screen? Do we have to do training? What's involved there? And then how long is it going to take? How many people do you need? Let's get the team assigned, set a goal. Now in here, I say start planning at 8 to 12 months. I said the project's only 4 to 6. What I mean by that is if you'd like to go live next spring in March, give us a call now. Let's get the planning started. Let's make sure that, first of all, if I have 40 customers come to me in February and say I want to start a project next month and be live by June in 2022, not going to happen. There's just not enough manpower in the entire affiliate channel consulting team to be able to handle 40 accounts at one time doing this conversion. We need to get you scheduled. We need to do it at your time frame. So let's work all that out. So with that being said, we're already at almost 50 minutes. Here is the information about the XA modernization. The last webinar Infor is doing is on April 15th. Please go to Infor Concierge to sign up for that. Guide has another webinar coming up about Release 10 and NetLink, and that's going to be on May 6th. You can go to our webpage to take care of that. And before I end this and open it up for any questions, I would like to thank Cincinnati Fan and WHIS Tech. Both of them are live on Enterprise Financials. We also have a number of other customers live, but they volunteered their time. And I apologize that the sound didn't work. I tested it on GoToMeeting. I didn't test it on GoToWebinar. That is my fault. So we will make those available to you with anybody who's interested. But the key thing that we wanted you to walk away from is if you're running accounting management and you're scared that this is too complex, we can keep your same type of structure and keep your transactions simple. If you are running on IFM and you have multi-company, multi-country, multi-chart of accounts, consolidation requirements, and you get into very complex environments, Enterprise Financials can handle that too. So we can handle both ends. We need to do the proper planning to make that happen. So I think that's all on my note list. Thank you for your time. And Brad, if you want to open it up or see if there's any questions, that's good for us.
I don't think I can open the audio to everybody. I think it's only via chat.
Well, either way, we have the chat room. If there's any question, chat something in there right now. Otherwise, we'll give this about a minute, and then we will call this an end.
No questions so far in the chat.
I'm seeing one here. I may have opened something different under the questions, and it's from Ken Toole, who's asking, will you still be able to interface with upload files like you can in AM? And that's as far as I could see. And the answer is yes. Now, when you interface to any system, your protocols may be a little bit different, but we can handle that. That comes across the standard system link interface, and we can absolutely do your load file processing.
Yeah, and the next question on there, Al, was from Candy. And Candy, I did state that it is best to be on release 9.2.2. As they were releasing Enterprise Financials, the general ledger came out in 9.1. Accounts receivable and accounts payable came out in 9.2, and the sub-releases had many fixes and improvements in those processes. So we highly recommend anybody that's going to eFin be on, even if you're testing it, if possible, be on the latest release, which currently is 9.2.2.
The other thing I would add to that, Rick, is that all of the information we've got so far is that when you are ready to go to 10, it's going to take you from 922 to 10. So even if you're going to put off your implementation, we've got to go through this. And to minimize risk, it's just better to do it at 2 different points in time.
Okay, I'm moving through this pretty quick. Thank you, Al. The next question is, were the videos in NetLink or PowerLink? Those were in PowerLink because those clients are live at release 922. So they are not running release 10 NetLink yet. They were in PowerLink. And I hope you noticed how quickly when she clicked on something at Cincinnati Fan, those screens changed. It was definitely a local issue, a transmission issue on the speed of the WHIS Tech ones, but the speed is very fast in PowerLink, but those were not yet converted over to NetLink. Moving forward through this, can you talk about transition over to NetLink from historical green screen users? This is going to be very common to those that have gone from green screen to PowerLink, except you don't need to go through the PowerLink transaction. This is something that we can talk about and help take you when it gets there, but the technology of going to the IDF, which is both PowerLink and NetLink, is not difficult. It's only a day or two of training to learn how that works. Then we want to make sure you're setting up your views, your subsets, your sorts that are unique to you and your company to get the best advantage of those systems. Again, a much more detailed conversation specific about your environment we would like to have when you call your account executive. Last couple quick questions. Will Enterprise Financials require a Windows server, or will it be able to run on the IBM i? It does run on the IBM i. The servers are only needed if you're doing PowerLink and you're trying to use remote desktops and things like that. Otherwise, it is an IDF application and runs on the IBM i. And lastly, are bandwidth requirements for release 10 the same as 922? Yes. And that's also another reason why we're recommending HTML. Let's get rid of those ridiculous bandwidth requirements of Java, and let's go to the HTML interface. Just as I was about to say this is done, I got another one pop up. I love the journal entry upload from Excel. It's just a comment that came, but yes, we have a complete Excel interface that comes to and downloads to Excel. So we communicate that back and forth.
Let me add, for the people that have not been on PowerLink yet, one of the beauties of Enterprise Finance is that every screen that you see data, you can have direct download to Excel. And when you're in NetLink, same thing.
And in fact, NetLink is going to have at release 10 a button that says download to spreadsheet. So you don't even have to go through the memory of your PC. So it gets a lot easier. With that said, guys, we're going to give you back the last 5 minutes of the hour. Thank you very much for attending our webinar. And again, I'm going to back this up. I must have bumped the screen while we were doing this. I'm going to put up the webinar commercials again, just so you can see that if anybody wanted to write that down. And I do encourage you to see the Infor webinar. And then our next webinar is also going to be on release 10 and NetLink. So thank you for your time. And Brad, I think we are finished.
Okay, thank you very much, everybody. You will be receiving a link for the recording of this webinar in the next day or so. And you'll also be to webinars as we have scheduled. Thank you again very much.